It's 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, on other business, if you would please add, Commissioner Johnson requested that we discuss the pine tree at the school and removal of such, also the old sign that's still on the school property, and also update on the progress of the project and specifically when the lot is going to be seeded for grass. I'd update the board on that, as apparently winter is coming early. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, with those additions, I would move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up we have the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of October 22nd, special meeting minutes of October 29th, auditor warrants of 10/25, 11/1, and 11/8, commissioner warrants, meal reimbursements, hospital warrants, and the October 2019 treasurer's report.
Mr. Chair, I'd move for approval.
Second.
Okay, the motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have highway engineer Nick Bergman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Nick.
Morning, Nick.
First up for me today, I have some project updates. The first update is on first page there, fourth project down with Henning Construction. That's for the culverts by Indian Lakes and then the ones on County Road 3. Structure by Indian Lakes is installed and open to traffic again. County Road 3, they're working on that one right now. All the pipe is installed and they're kind of waiting on weather. They got to pour a little concrete for it, but that'll be maybe even open this week yet, who knows, so.
Nick, excuse me, I didn't see that in the packet when it was sent out electronically.
Oh,
So they don't have that.
okay. Okay,
I'm fine with
You
that.
guys okay with it? Do you want a copy of it quick?
Just let him continue.
That's fine, he can
Okay.
present it. That's-
We copy afterwards, I'll give it to him.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
yeah, it's the same format as I sent out before.
Yeah.
I must have missed that, sorry about that.
That-
So the second update I have is also with Henning Construction. That's our County Road 2 federal box culvert. They're going to be, I think, starting on that this week. They're fighting with weather on that too. We got to do a bypass and then some of the, I don't know, if endangered species folks from St. Paul want to come down for that one because this has got federal money on it. So we're working with them, but it looks like that one's going to get done this year too. So that'll be good.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Nick, what's the biggest hindrance with you with the wintertime? Is it the frozen ground or the lack of traction once we get snow cover?
Well, if the ground's froze, there's really not much we can do.
They won't use a frost tooth and rip through it. They'll stop once the ground freezes up.
Yeah, generally we don't have to work this late, but
Depending on what the weather does the next couple
well, it
weeks.
took a long time to get permits from them for this one because since there's federal money, there's more people involved in it.
Yeah.
You know, you might get through one or two of them and they're happy with it, and then it goes to the third one and they want something changed. Then it's got to go all the way back to the beginning. So then there was that shutdown for a while in the spring.
So there is a possibility then if this sub-zero weather sets in that they might not get it done this fall then.
It's possible. We've talked about other, kind of a plan B, et cetera now. We might do part of it this year, the part that's down in the water. And then if it happens to freeze too hard in the meantime, we just fill that back in to get the road passable. And then, in the spring, we can't work in the water is the problem. But this structure has culverts, or floodplain culverts they're called, those would be up out of the water, so we could come back and rip the road back open and do that. So we've got some backup plans for this, but I see some 40s in the forecast, so, you know, hopefully we can get, at least get it excavated out, you know, and then I think at that point it'd be pretty safe bet that we get it, so.
But generally, once the ground freezes up, you don't fight the frost.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, we, been here 12 years. I don't ever remember seeing a frost tooth out there or anything like that, so. The next update I have is for that last box culvert contract we let with A&C Construction. It's for Sweet Township and County Road 16. 2 for Sweet and 2 on County Road 16, that is. The one for Sweet Township, the road is washed out, if you remember, from the flooding. You know, the culverts are 50 foot downstream, and we're starting to, it sounds like we're back a ways on the production list, but now everybody else is backing out, like it's too cold, they don't want to deal with it, but A&C is willing to deal with it, so it's actually sounding like there's a pretty decent chance that we'll get those done this year. Or I thought it was very, very minimal odds, but now I'm saying it's maybe up to a coin toss chance, so stay tuned on that one, so that's good news. Then one little side note with these projects that Henning Construction is doing, we've had cold temperatures and a lot of moisture. So typically they would lay this material out and dry it out and then, you know, install it, pack it down, whatnot. But the cold temperatures and how wet everything is, we can't get it dried out. So we had them install it, you know, the best they can, but just as a heads up, I've talked with them and I really think everything's going to turn really soft in the spring. And we're going to have to put up with that, but there's nothing else we can do about it. So I told them that's fine, go ahead, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up if it happens and if you get some complaints. We knew it's coming, there's nothing we could do about it, so I'm not upset with them at all. They were worried that it's going to make it look like they did a bad job, but there's nothing else they could do about it, so.
We don't have any P-rock or gravel or dry clay that we put in there now, or you've already backfilled?
Yeah, we've got, you know, maybe it won't be as big a deal as I made it sound like. I guess I'm just trying to get you ready for the worst case scenario, but, you know, some of that material has to be reused, but some of it's new, you know, like backfill, granular material, that's fine, but I'm worried about the little bit of reused stuff that kind of makes it all bad, so, or soft, so.
Sometimes you just have to wait for the weather to get better, and then you can't force things to happen in the wintertime, so I guess that's about all you
Yeah.
can say about that.
So I'm fine with where it's at. There's some potential problems, but I'm fine with it, so. So that's all I had for project updates. Then, did you get a copy of a MnDOT agreement in your packet?
Yes.
For the bridge out here? Okay. So with that, you know, MnDOT's gonna close Highway 75 and they're gonna have to detour some traffic. They picked our County Road 10 and 16 for a detour route that looks a little strange because it's so far out of the way, but we've got a posted bridge on County Road 8 and a posted bridge on 7, and they can't use routes with posted bridges, so that's why they took that one way around. It's the same agreement that's been done in the past. They do it every time, you know, they have to send traffic on our roads, so there's, I don't know, nothing unique to it really. It's just it's standard. It needs a resolution with it and approval for the agreement. Looks like they're anticipating ended up paying us around $32,000 for this, so.
You need a motion to approve that detour?
Yes,
I
yep,
move to approve
and
the detour as it is.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion second to approve MnDOT's proposed detour for Highway 75. Is there any further discussion?
And Mr. Chairman, that would also include Resolution 59-39-19 for us to sign the resolution. I mean, that's on the last page.
Okay, that would, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I think the local people are gonna find their own way to get around it. It's just a matter of formality to go ahead and do it, so.
Yep, and I anticipate there'll be some people taking some shortcuts, and the guy that is Ron, his name's on the agreement there, he suggested we do some traffic counts on what he thought would be the shortcut detour, and it sounds like we could possibly get some reimbursement for that.
Oh.
We'll check it again during construction. If it shoots way up, they might help out with that too, so
Very
that was
good.
nice of him.
Yes.
Okay, we do have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, next item up there, this has come up a few times in the past. A few months ago, I met with school in Edgerton, the city, the sheriff's office. There's a concern with speed in front of the school there on County Road 9. They requested a speed study a while ago. I was contacted right before the state processed the data, and I think they were trying to tip their hat a little bit that it was gonna go up if we went through with it, so that's not what we wanted, so we stopped the study there. They set radar signs out there. I believe the highest speed they saw was 42. The sheriff spent some time down there. Everybody slows down, of course, when they see a marked squad car, but some of the other options were like a school zone study, but that, that's like $10,000 to $15,000, and then the typical outcomes on those are, say, some lighted signs, or some more signs, a fence. So trying to bypass that, I guess, we priced out and looked into some of the typical signing ourselves. And that's what I included in the packet, a copy in the back. These push button lights at the crosswalks, looks like you can do an intersection for about $4,100. So a thought I had was adding it to to our sign policy, that the county would participate in those, essentially the same agreement as the dynamic speed signs. Really just copied the wording, and, changed to, I think I added schools, cities instead of just cities, but I think that would be, probably the cheapest option towards trying to make some progress along there. So I guess I would like to change that policy and include those signs, and could maybe do that at some of those crossings.
Will there be another crosswalk put in or something like that, or are they gonna consider doing that at the existing crosswalks? Because I don't think there is one.
There's 3.
There's one in the middle somewhere, but there's east and there's west of Block, there's a crosswalk, but.
I guess I haven't heard anything about adding another one. I believe there's a marked one by the gas station, and then there's one by the school, and
One toward Main Street,
right.
but they just kind of walk across the road wherever they feel like anyway. But, that's the way it is with kids. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, I don't know what we could do about that, I guess, but
One of the issues that I see a lot there is during the day, if the parking lot's full, there's cars parked right on the highway. And during sporting events and things like that at the school, it's always parked all the way along there. And people are walking out across to their car, or they're walking to, and they open their doors, of course, and get in the car, and that looks to me like a really, and I don't know that there's any cure for that. I mean, there just isn't, and so, talk about it all the time, but how are you gonna stop all that? And people have to park somewhere, and there's just not enough parking there.
right. So when we had that meeting, if I remember right, I think they made that stretch no parking before,
Could be, I don't know what they've done with it now, but
and then people started parking in front of the houses, and well, then those people got upset about that, so.
park down on the service drive sometimes
Yes,
too.
yeah.
Which is okay, but then they've all gotta walk across the highway too, so.
Right, Right, if, if they had a bigger parking lot, that'd probably solve
Would help.
most of the problems, but,
But when there's ball games and bigger things, there's just a lot of people there.
yeah.
So,
Yep, so it's, one of the other things discussed was it's possible that maybe we'd make a little no parking area right by these crosswalks so people aren't into the line of traffic before it starts.
yeah, that might help. You can see what's coming a little better.
Right, so if we essentially eliminated one or two spots, on each side, that might help, but, the school, it sounds like they're gonna add some signs. If you believe Highway 30 has them, like in the middle of the road, kind of right on the center line saying that it's a crosswalk, whatever. And that would be, in my mind, like a traffic calming device. It kind of narrows the road down for drivers so they naturally slow down, so. I think that with these signs, I think would make a difference, in my opinion.
At least it's something to
Yes.
try to address the problem.
It's a
I
start.
don't know if there's 100% cure for it just because of the number of people that, it's just busier there than it used to be.
Right.
More people.
Yep.
And there's no traffic there. And so.
So I don't know if this has come up in the past. I believe the city of Pipestone did some of these signs on their own, I believe. I don't know if that was safe routes to school or what. I don't know the history on that, so. So I don't know if this has come up before, I guess, so I'm not trying to beat a dead horse or anything, but I think it'd be a good start, so.
Fine by me if you want to
Okay.
move forward with it, I guess. I don't know what.
I-
Chair,
I had just proposed, I guess, as amending our pavement marking and traffic signing procedure policy to include these along with the dynamic speed signs.
how effective do we think the dynamic speed signs are? I know when we first put them in, we were concerned that people would just become immune to them after a while. Is that the case, do you think, or are they still helpful?
I don't know. I guess I haven't heard a whole lot. I know in the beginning I heard that it was helping,
Yeah.
but I haven't done any follow-up with either of the cities.
That's my
Bruce,
opinion.
you got an opinion at all, Bruce?
I think it helps. It reminds people that they are entering a slowdown zone.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
And these signs, they have the push buttons, so they wouldn't be flashing all the time, and to where people would just get used to them and start ignoring them. It'd be, when someone walks there, they
Push the button, then they have to.
then it'd turn on. So when you're driving by, you wouldn't see it every time. So I think that's a plus. Something that-
It becomes more of a warning.
yeah.
Luke?
I know I saw some being used in Mankato recently by their civic center downtown, and some college students came out of their hockey building or whatever and pushed the button and, bravely walked out in front of 4 lanes of traffic, and the cars did stop, so it seemed to work there anyway.
Yeah, brave.
I don't know, even with the mobile one that the sheriff moves around town, wherever they move it to, I see a difference too in the speed of traffic, so
Okay.
I think it'd be beneficial.
As I'd move to approve the addition to the policy.
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to update this policy. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Next, I have some maintenance updates. Over the last month, we've been still working on flood repairs. Probably working on that till everything's completely froze. We've been doing some dirt work at our new gravel pit. Part of the high bid price, I think, was the removal of the topsoil, so we're working on that ourselves. Typically we would have just done that ourselves, but we were working on flood repairs too, so it's, we've been stretched too thin this year for that, so. Since the crushing got delayed, we'll probably, have more time to, if we get good weather, that'll help too. We'll keep chipping away at it, so at least do part of it, I guess, so. So we've also been trying to finish up on our roadside mowing, putting down some gravel where needed, and unfortunately, we've had to plow snow already this year, so back at that again. So that's general maintenance updates. Then also a couple items. We were contacted by Grange Township. They wanted to do a road swap with us. Typically, how road swaps have worked in the past is a township wants to give up a road that needs something done on it. Naturally, you know, might need a larger repair bill or whatever. So we generally trade somewhere in the ballpark of 2 to 1. So there's 2 segments of road that Grange Township wanted to give up. They both need some major culvert work done to them. And it ended up, I think this swap ended up being like a 1.7 to 1, so not quite a 2 to 1, but it actually worked out really well for our route. So their board has approved it. And I'm looking at, I don't know what I should say, just making sure I got everything correct for doing this, but I'll be back to get it formally approved. Just kind of wanted to give you the heads up now. But it'd work well for our route. You know, we'd be taking on 2 culverts that need replacements, but so it costs us more up front, but you know, we're maintaining less in the future, so it'd be a good deal for us in the end.
Well, at least you get something out of the swap. Sometimes it's all one-sided.
Oh, right, we wouldn't do it if that was the case. You know, we're kind of trading a big bill up front for less maintenance in the future, so.
And maybe a more continual route if you're plowing or something.
Yeah, we're thinking it might save our plow driver a half hour on his round, so.
That helps.
Yeah, that'd be nice too, so. So yeah, more to come on that. I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up right now, so. Then also that drainage at the county line on County Road 15, we'd have that all surveyed now and some data put together. I haven't had enough time to look at it to come up with a plan, but I just kind of wanted to give you an update that we do have the survey done, and hopefully I'll have a final plan back to you next month then on what I'd like to do. So I guess that's all I had for now. Did anybody have any?
Nick, was there any involvement with Kyle on that? That's the issue up on the county line, right?
Correct.
Is there any movement as far as Kyle to look into the property owners to the south? You have nothing to do with that, do you? That's
No.
up to him.
Yeah, we don't have,
Well, we can't do anything about it unless they voluntarily
right.
put in buffers or whatever it was gonna be there, but
Yeah, I don't know.
you're not involved in that. So
No. You'd have to ask Kyle. I mean, maybe I don't even know.
made any gestures towards maybe having that happen would be
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah, if he's got money to like buy an easement on that or something, some program, I don't know.
The landowner should be eager to have that done, I would think, but maybe he's not.
I would think so.
But anyway, okay, I didn't think you were involved in that, but that's okay.
No, not that part. I'm just looking at, what was the ditches we dug or whatever, for the road construction project 10 years ago, but. So. Right. Any other questions for me?
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before Nick leaves, I did receive a letter on, last week while I was gone, that Governor Walz did approve the disaster declaration for the flooding in September. So the state will be picking up 75% of the costs of the repairs in the county.
Okay, that's good news.
A little help. I'll paperwork for you, though. Not as bad as FEMA, though.
I hope so. Well, being through the first one, it kind of helps. We kind of know what they want on the second one, so. All right.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we have a consider appointment of auditor treasurer. Who's presenting that? Is it
All
you,
right.
Steve, or?
Yeah, Kathy and I will tag team on that. We'll just work through this. Okay. I was approached by Auditor Tyler Reich about 6 weeks ago. Came in and requested that his position be appointed. and went through the information, and the state legislature this year did adopt new legislation to make this process much more easy to work through than it was in the past, where in the past you would have had to make a resolution, get it to a legislator to foot the bill for you, then get it through the system and then bring it back. It's pushed now back to the local level for the counties to deal with it based on the legislation. If you take a look at the request for board action, it kind of spells it out pretty clearly on here, is that paperwork I've got on it, if you look at this one here, has all the information on it. The background is the state legislature did approve in the 2019 session by adopting Senate File 1731 and House File 968, allowing elected county boards to start a public process to appoint the offices of the recorder, treasurer, and auditor if and only if there is an agreement with the current office holder or there is a vacancy in the office. So Auditor Reich did request to myself that he be appointed county auditor treasurer, so I started going through the information, contacting other counties as to how they did the process, if anybody has, and that there has been action on it already. AMC was a very vocal supporter of this, and the reason they were is they wanted to get it back to the county level and the county board level, making the decisions versus the legislature doing these on a piecemeal basis. So this can happen at any time. So if you look at the thing that is 5.3, that information kind of lists the whole tree of how we go through the system. And most important thing, it says it's permissive language, doesn't have to be done, but it does allow the elected board to start a public process to appoint the offices of the recorder, treasurer, and auditor if and only if there is agreement with the current office holder or there is a vacancy in office. So far, Auditor Reich has come forward and requested that he be appointed. So he is initiating that to us as the county. All right. So we have an agreement with the elected officers. So what Kathy and I did is we put together information as far as an employment agreement. We have a draft in front of you of what that would pertain to. And if Tyler were moved into this position, he would become a department head of the county. And his job description then would state that he would answer, at this point, if he was appointed, he would not answer to the voters any longer because he would not be elected. He would answer to the county and the county administrator, and he would be an employee of the county. Okay. So with that, be the first thing. So what we do once we work through all of that we give a public notice to the public to get them involved in it. We post the notice for 2 consecutive weeks in all the papers that are in the county. So that would be Pipestone, Edgerton, Jasper, and the Tyler Tribute to hit the Ruthven area. All right. We hold a public hearing, so we invite the public to come and be a participant in that. And they would come in and tell you yes, no, give you their feelings on it, just like any other public hearing. And once that is done, the board would make a decision on it. This does require a supermajority of the board. It would require 4 of 5, not a normal 3-2 vote. It would take 80% to approve in favor of this happen. If that didn't happen, it would be done at that point if the commissioners decided not to do that. Once the board, for instance, if the board did say, yes, this is a good thing, we should move forward with this, the public also has the opportunity after that. We have to wait at least 30 days before it can take action because the public has the right to do a reverse referendum by getting 10% of the registered voters in the county to come and present that petition to the auditor to bring to the board and say, the voters say, no, we want to have a vote on this. So the voters do have a say in this once even the commissioners say, yes, we want to go ahead. And if the board said, no, we don't want to go ahead, it's done there anyway. So we don't have to worry about the petition. If there is no petition, no 10%, after that's done, there is one other time that the board or that the public can go and request that it comes back. It'd be after 3 years. They can also do another referendum, to initiate another reverse referendum with 10% of the voters to revert the office back to elected. So their public process is in this the whole entire way. So it's not, unilateral, it's just the board dealing with this. The public has to be involved with this the whole way. So with that, following the policy on it of what the Senate and the state wanted to do, what our plan was is that I laid it out on a schedule on the request for board action, is that If the board approved today to move forward with this, I would publish the notice for 2 weeks. They would be in the newspapers on November 18th and 25th. Okay? So that would be as of next week's, and the following week would have 2 weeks in there. At the December 3rd special meeting at 10 a.m., we would have the public hearing where the public would be invited to come and talk about it. And at that time, the board would make a decision to either move forward with it or stop it right there. And again, if that were to happen, if it was approved, the board, the public, would have 30 days to file their 10% of registered voter petition in. So what we'd want to do today is approve the action above, is what I'm talking about, so we could get the notice published and do that. After that would happen, if this is approved today, we would have the job description ranked by Fox Lawson to put him on the county pay plan. December 3rd, we'd hold a public hearing, and if everything was approved, on December 3rd, we would approve the second resolution, 5938, appointing Tyler Reich as a department head, and he would be appointed department heads starting January 6th of 2020. That would be the soonest this could move forward. So Kathy did most of the background work on the employment agreement. She worked with MACA on this, and we have a draft employment agreement listed in front of you to take a look at as well. I think, Kathy, you want to talk a little bit about that, if that would be all right? Mention what we've got there.
Sure. So the employment agreement was received through AMC, and basically we kind of plugged in what Pipestone County has. So like our working hours, it's an exempt position. So this was referenced from our personnel policy. The tenure and employee benefit, or an auditor treasurer benefits, that is something built into the statute that they would need to retain their tenure and benefits, give them credit for the time that they've already been here at the county as an elected official. The salary portion here, you can see the current gross salary is listed. And as Steve mentioned, you would need to get the job description approved, which was not in your packet today, so I think we'd be looking at getting that approved the next meeting. And then it would be then ranked, just like all of our other job descriptions, and a recommendation would be given for the plan there. The pay periods, that just references our current pay schedule. As far as, any kind of withholdings, pensions, mileage reimbursements, that would be the same as and as any other county staff person. Professional development, just some of the membership fees of organizations that Tyler does belong to. Performance reviews are done on an annual basis for our staff. As far as the termination, so this agreement goes through the end of his current elected term, at which point you fall under the personnel policies that we have in place. Then the resignation requirements, which are pretty standard, a 30-day notice. Otherwise, I think it's pretty standard language for an employment agreement. So, any questions on that?
Thank you.
Just have some comments in general. First of all, I'd like to remind everyone that the last time our public voted on this issue, it was about 70-30 that they were in favor of these positions being elected. Furthermore, we are less than 1 year into this new position, And if it were any other position in the county, we typically would have a 1-year probationary period. And since we haven't even gone through that, to have a chance to fully evaluate how the position's going, I think we're getting, the cart in front of the horse. I think that we need to do our due diligence and have the personnel committee take a look at this, speak with coworkers and other departments that interact with this position to see how things are going. And I guess I would, be more in favor of tabling it until after the first of the year to give the personnel committee a chance to do their due diligence and look into this further as far as whether it's a good idea or not.
To get the conversation started, I'd move to approve the appointment, go ahead with it and consider the appointment. I'd make a motion to go ahead and consider it at this point. That's the first step, right, Steve?
Yes.
And then we can talk about it, if we get a second.
Is there a second to Bruce's motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I guess I was on the committee when we hired Tyler, and at that time, the personnel committee, this is one of the things we were hoping for down the road at some point. Well, that's been 7 years now, since you've been with the county. So I guess I have confidence in Tyler's ability to take over the situation and do a good job for us. I think he's proven himself. Personally, I'm in favor of moving forward with it, but I'm just one vote. So.
Dan?
Your existing term expires when? 2023.
Is there any other further discussion? Luke?
Well, Tyler's been with us for a number of years. He's been with us for a number of years as the auditor. As the auditor treasurer, he's been with us for a little over 10 months. And frankly, I don't hear a lot of positive comments from the public as far as how certain aspects of this job are working out. And I think that maybe that needs to be looked at more before we move forward with this process.
Have you had some negative comments about Tyler's
I have,
performance?
yes.
I've had the opposite. I've had positive comments from people in my district, but that doesn't.
Dan?
I've supported Tyler from the time we hired him, and I'll continue to do so.
That's fine.
Dan, did you have a comment?
Question for Steve on the state file that we've got in front of us then. Does it talk at all about going directly to a public vote? Is that a possibility as well too? The only time there'd be a public vote is if there is opposition to the board.
Correct, it'd be a
taking positive
reverse
action.
referendum, correct. It'd be if the public did not want you to do this, that would be their opportunity to come and say, no, we don't want this. So
Yeah.
Commissioner Johnson alluded to the 70-30 percentage. This would give the opportunity to let the public come in and say what they think to you, if they think it's a good idea or not.
Right, but the only way that would work is if we, as a board, approved it first, and they could have a referendum to overturn it. That's the way this is written.
Yes.
Do we have the right as a county to go ahead and skip that step and put it directly to a public
No.
vote?
No.
We don't.
No,
There'll be if we approve it, the next step would be a public meeting. So there's opportunity for public to comment if they so.
Yes, but after the public hearings, if we do decide with a supermajority to go ahead with this and approve it, then the next step would be if the public would be involved for them to challenge our decision.
Right.
You'd have 30 days to. Then after that, it would have to be after 3 years.
And I guess that's why I was asking her what the term is. So we got 2023, so we do have some time to work through this. It's not like this will be a real short frame. It's not the next election cycle. We got a little bit of time here.
And given Commissioner Johnson's concerns, I mean, that there is time on our side to maybe answer a few of his questions. So,
and Mr. Chairman, the Personnel Committee did meet with Kathy and I on this, and the Personnel Committee was supportive of this, to move forward with it enough to bring it to the board for today.
Yes.
To consider this. So that support was there as well. Other things it does too, just, anecdotally speaking, is that if the auditor treasurer are appointed and at some time down the road, Tyler does decide to leave for whatever reason, you now have the ability, since it's appointed, to hire that position done and have qualifications of what you're looking for.
Right.
And not necessarily just someone who gets elected to do the job, because the job that he's doing is quite complicated and quite difficult and requires a high degree of skill and aptitude to deal with the finances of the county. So having that person going forward, if Tyler were to leave, I believe in what Tyler's doing here. I believe he's doing a good job for the county. Yes, there's some learning that needs to be done as he's taking on the treasurer's responsibility as well, but that's to be expected in my mind. But it does allow us in the future to have control of what happens should Tyler leave. And, we're not dealing with recorder's office this time. There's nothing to do with that, but that also could be part of this in the future. But Mary Ann is content with where she's at, and that's just fine. But Tyler initiated this to me, and that's why we're doing it and bringing it forward.
Yeah.
As far as the time goes, if the board wants to move this back, analyze it a little further, you can do that. But the motion today was to consider this, and if we were to consider this today, we would move forward with the steps on this and have the hearing in December.
And to state the obvious, then Tyler, I'm assuming because you brought this forward that yes, you are in agreement with doing this, because that's one of the stipulations. Obvious, yes.
Thanks.
I think it protects the board from future elections where you could get a candidate that has no qualifications whatsoever could
Right.
get elected to this job, and it's
That's-
grown to a situation where a person can't just come in off the street and take over a job like
No,
this.
it's far too complex of a job.
And we're not, the election process is fine up to a point, but in a case like this, you want to be able to interview someone and make sure they're qualified to do a job for the taxpayers and represent the county. So,
Whereas some of the,
It gives the control back to the board here.
and some will argue that there's too much control on the board. But that's who this board's elected to make those choices, not for their personal use, but for the benefit of the county. And I think it protects the county and the rest of the staff more by being able to choose someone that's qualified for the job versus someone that just gets elected off the street.
One of our neighboring counties has that problem right now, and they're in rural.
Mr. Chair, and then also in response to the qualification part of it, draw a parallel to some of our other elected positions, obviously the sheriff. But in that particular case, it's mandated that the sheriff has to have credentials in order to be able to do
Right.
that. Whereas in this particular case, there are no credentialing requirements. It's elected at large. So this would ensure that we would be able to select a qualified candidate. Steve, on the map that you showed where the other counties that have already done this, but that was those that have both combined and/or appointed.
This just shows a map of where the state is now when they've either combined or hired.
Yes.
And gone through the legislative process to get them appointed.
Which obviously, as we all know, we combine. Do you have a breakdown? Because that's both either or,
No, I don't
appointed
have
or.
any
So
further
we don't know
breakdown
how
on
many
it.
have actually gone to the appointed position.
No.
I guess I would be curious, as we start the discussions, we have the public hearings, I think that'd be a piece of information it'd be good to have, is how many other counties have actually gone to the appointed position.
Memory serves me correct, I think there was only one, because this is very new,
Brand new.
brand new, yeah.
The latest one that's doing it is Mille Lacs County.
I might be wrong, but doesn't Rock County already have this? I think there are other counties that have approved this already in the past.
Yeah, all the counties shaded in have gone through the legislative format to appoint these positions.
I thought that
Combine or
was
to appoint.
combine or appoint, so it doesn't really tell us those that have combined. It just tells us combined or appointed. Excuse me, the other way around. Because that doesn't,
The majority of them have gone to a combined position, auditor treasurer.
Right.
Where what's new now is
Is
the
the
county
appointed part of it.
appointment process.
Yeah.
So
So you're asking for a map of just those that have chosen the appointed route.
Correct.
And I believe there was only been one, and that was Mille Lacs County. So, but that's just because this is very new
Very
legislation.
new, yes. So again, giving credence to Luke's idea, maybe that we don't get ahead of ourselves here on this a little bit.
So what are your feelings, commissioners?
Well, we do have a motion on the floor.
We do. Is there any further discussion?
Well, with the process as it goes forward, just made a motion to start the process.
Right.
There's a lot of public input has to happen, or opportunity for public to comment if they so desire, before this would become fact. So this is
Exactly.
just the first step in the process.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do
Okay.
it, personally.
And again, if I may, before we go any further, the process is to get the information posted, get this resolution out there for the public, and have a public hearing on it, and see what the people want to say.
I really think there's more counties, if they have a good auditor treasurer, or would like to go down this road, if they have someone qualified that they know is good and can trust them and would like to go this way. I think there's a lot of them will want to do it. But that doesn't mean we can't be one of the first ones to do it.
I suppose it would take,
I don't have a problem with that at all, being,
with being appointed, it'd take concerns off of, well, Tyler, about having one of these unqualified candidates coming and challenging him one year, too, so.
I agree. So then part of the motion then also is setting that December 3rd, did you say, as the public hearing date? So that is part of this motion, starting the process and setting that public hearing date.
Process.
All right, is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I,
Motion carries to move consider appointment auditor treasurer to Tyler. So,
Thank you, I'll get going on this.
well, Tyler, you ready to move ahead to your business?
Sorry for the time, I didn't know how long the discussion would last, so I gave us plenty of time to do it.
Morning, everybody.
good morning.
Morning.
So, I have two things for you today. The first one, well, they're both pretty basic, but the first one is a donation from Casey's to the sheriff's office. I believe this is for the canine medical bills, essentially. So I just need approval in order to be able to legally accept this donation.
So moved.
And seconded.
Okay, a motion and second to accept the donation for K-9. Any further discussion?
Tyler, what's the amount, do you know?
$500.
Thank you.
For $500. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, so the other thing that I have is not really even a bid, it's an agreement from ES&S, who does all of our election software. We're looking to upgrade our election reporting software, essentially because the other system is out of date, and we're gonna have to move forward with this, either this election or the next election. But since we're getting new equipment, this is a better time to do it because it works better with the new equipment. Normally, the cost is only $4,300, but since they're having $1,700 worth of training day to come down and actually teach us how to use the equipment, it's just it's not necessarily required, but it's highly recommended to ensure that we get the results reported correctly. So pretty much the bill is going to be $6,075, and then every year we're going to have $44,375 for the right to use the software. And it's a required software that we need to have moving forward so that we can compile the results.
is that every year, every election year?
Every year. So, I mean, it's just a flat, I talked to them about if they could change that, but they said that's just kind of how they do it. It's industry standard. It kind of stinks when we have to pay for something off year. We do it anyways, but currently it's only about $2,000 instead of $4,375. But as you guys know, with new technology and better software, the price tends to go up. So It's a required, I mean, this isn't necessarily required, but once the operating system, the system that we're using currently, we have to keep a computer in our back office on an older operating system, because that's the newest operating system that the old software can use. So once that computer goes kaput, we have to move to this no matter what anyways. It's just required by technology at this point, so.
Was this budgeted, Tyler?
This will be budgeted. As of right now, it's not budgeted, but I'm expecting to use fund balance that we have in our assigned elections account for it. So we already have money set aside for it.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I presume you'd be working with the IT department on this as well, getting it all
Correct.
hooked up and everything.
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion to authorize the purchase of electronic software from ESS.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion second to authorize purchase of electronic software from ESS. Any further discussion? Dan?
Discussion. Any chance in the future there might be another vendor, so we're not held to just one vendor for the software? I really feel uncomfortable when we get our arm twisted, but I realize it's what happens in the industry.
It's the industry. We have ES&S equipment, so we kind of have to use ES&S software. And that's not just us, it's kind of a nationwide problem.
Yes.
Where as soon as you buy their equipment, you're kind of locked into all their software too. Nothing that I necessarily agree with, but obviously you'd rather be able to get the cheaper bids, but there's nothing that we can really do. It's the only thing that works with their equipment, so.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Not all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, that's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions for Tyler while he's here? Okay.
No, all right,
you.
thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Tyler, I'll give you that back.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our regular business. We'll move on to other business at this time. Kathy, do you have any personnel items to present?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So in our assessor's office, we have a open appraiser position. And we did have some interest from our assessing technician to move into that role. And we would really like to, I guess, promote her into that role. She's already started the licensing process. Kim Murphy is the individual. She's been here with us for about 1.5 years. So we would like to promote her into that position effective December 1st, and then backfill the position and advertise publicly for the assessing technician position. This was ran through the personnel committee, and they're in agreement with this process. So I guess I'm just looking for board approval to do that, to promote Kim Murphy into that position. She's kind of uniquely qualified because she's already been going through the process of getting licensed for the assessor's office. And then to, again, advertise publicly for the assessing technician position, external and internal candidates for that.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we do ratify HR's decision to go ahead and promote this individual to the assessor's position.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Appraiser.
Appraiser.
Yeah,
appraiser,
she would be
appraiser.
moving from the assessing tech
Appraiser.
to the junior appraiser position is
I know I
the,
said that
is the
wrong.
job titles.
Appraiser.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion second. Is there any further discussion? Dan?
Discussion. We are in good standing doing this before she gets her credentials?
Yes.
How
Yep.
long a period does she have then to become fully accredited?
She has 3 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And is there cost involved with her training of those?
Yes.
Do we have a program for continuing education for our employees? Would she be qualified for us to supplement the cost of her training?
So we just pay to send her to training, just like any other kind of conference or training. So I think there's 4 one-week trainings in the first year. I think they're 4 days, actually. So you'd be paying travel expenses and the,
Lodging.
training rates, lodging for those types of things. So there is a cost to it for sure. It is a state requirement, though, so we really can't not have her go through the licensing, so.
My concern is worst case scenario that for some reason she's not able to complete and receive her certification. What do we do at that point?
I guess we cross that bridge when we get to it. We're never going to, we're going to do our best to get employees the training they need to be successful, I guess would be my answer to that. So, if she doesn't pass the first time, or this goes for any of our staff, we'll try to get them the extra training they would need to pass. Just because they have the valuable experience already working for us, we're going to try our best to get them to go through that process.
For personal growth and development, and we need to give them the tools they need to do their job.
Exactly.
If it were to get drawn out and she's just not able to do that, then I suppose that could be addressed in through her personnel reviews, because that could be a
Yes.
target through, there could be a performance
Exactly.
improvement plan through that, so that would be a possibility.
Exactly. Yep, they do have a responsibility to get this done in a certain amount of time, so that is addressed annually through the performance review process.
Well, I'm encouraged that she's shown the initiative to want to advance herself and to improve her knowledge on this. And obviously, it's something that we need, because it is a state requirement that we have certified appraisers. So
Right.
I'm pleased that she's willing to step up and do this. I wish her well.
Chairman, if I may add, I believe it's very important that we do everything we can to move our current employees up through the system, because they are our next leaders as we move forward, and backfilling that way makes good sense for us. And also gives us an opportunity now to go find hopefully a good candidate for Kim's position that she'll be leaving, but moving up is what we really want to see these people do, because that helps us out a lot in the future.
And again, we've got to
have
give,
when we move up.
we've got to give them the tools they need to do the job, and that tools includes this training and so forth.
And that's mandatory, as Kathy said, that's part of the state requirements to get to these positions of these appraisers and assessors. They have to do the training, and it is required. So that way we know we have trained people in those jobs too.
Very good.
Is there any other further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thanks, Kathy. And next up, we have authorized Commissioner Johnson to sign the Area 2 agreement, joint powers agreement.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet, you have a copy of the joint cooperative agreement for the next 2 years, and it would be appropriate, as Commissioner Johnson is our representative, to authorize him to sign the agreement. And it would be signed again by all the other counties involved in Area 2, but it would be appropriate to have Commissioner Johnson be approved to sign for Pipestone County.
Nothing's changed except the date. What we pay into it's the same, all the details are the same. It's just a 2-year extension.
Mr. Chair, I'd make that motion.
And I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to authorize Commissioner Johnson to sign the Area 2 agreement. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'm not opposed to doing it, but I question when we have less than 1% of the water of the outfit, why we're even part of it. We don't even have any, do we have a little creek in the Area 2, or we have so little involvement in it that?
We have the headwaters of the Redwood River,
Okay.
Minute Grants Dam is one of the bigger projects here. There's some other
Okay.
small
No, it's fine, I'm
projects.
not, saying we have to get out of it, but I'm just saying, I think it's costing us a lot of money for the very little minimal property that we have that are affected by it.
Okay, well, moving on, we have a Prime West Health update. Steve?
Would you like me to take that?
Dan?
Sure,
Okay.
go ahead, Dan.
Last week, then Thursday, November 7th, we had our monthly Prime West meeting. One of the issues was the proposed legislative conference that Jim Prisbo was trying to get put together. That wasn't able to materialize. It was just too difficult to get the 24 different representatives from the counties involved there, so that's been put on hold for now. Last month, we did approve the wording of the new joint powers, I should say the adjustments to the joint powers agreement. We were a little bit premature in that they weren't quite ready for us to act on that because it had gone out to the expansion counties for their comments. And there were a few comments from a couple of the attorneys from 2 of those expansion counties. So the verbiage itself needs to be reapproved for that. Jim Prisbo will send down a clean copy of that. The two issues that were challenged on that joint powers were the part about the voting responsibilities. There is some ambiguity as far as what the expansion counties would be able to vote on and what they couldn't. So that was cleaned up a little bit in the wording, and we don't have a copy of that yet, but we do. I think we'll have that pretty soon, so I'm sure we'll have it on the agenda for next meeting. But basically, any financial jeopardy that a vote could possibly put the group as a whole into would be excluded from the expansion counties to vote on until they actually have their stake in it. Because at this point, they don't have any financial stake. They won't have financial stake until they actually join the group and pay their initiation fee, whatever you want to call that fee, their buy-in, their equity buy-in on it. The other concern then was also on the there were two items on that. I just slipped my mind. What they could vote on. Oh, withdrawal process.
Right,
We talked about the withdrawal process on the joint powers agreement, and one of the attorneys was looking to be able to find some way that if they withdrew, that they could take their money back with them. Well, the group as a whole up there said that really isn't the intent of what this joint powers always is. It's always been considered that it's one for all and all for one, and once you're in it to stay. And there's no real provisions for the existing counties to ever take their equity back out, of course. Now, granted, our equity is built up over the years of the evaluation of that program where they're buying in with cash equity to match that. So that part was stricken out of there. That won't be part of the joint powers agreement. So that wording will be cleared up in that new agreement. So Jim will be sending that down to us to review.
Anything else on Prime West, Ben?
Really not. The other business that day was normal business. There was another software contract that we had to agree to. Again, like what we did with Tyler today, this buying software. But that was really the only other business, specific business that the Joint Powers Group took up Thursday. Okay, thank you.
Les, do you have anything to add?
I wasn't there.
Oh, weren't you? Okay.
Yep.
All right, very good. Okay, we'll move on to the talk about the pine tree and sign over at the site of the former central school. Luke?
I guess I thought we had already decided on this before, that we had paid to have a clear lot. I hope that we're gonna go forward with that and have a clear lot when we're done.
I guess I would agree with that, but I know the sign, we did try to move it 5 or 6 years ago to the fairgrounds, and they tried to pick it up, and it was falling apart at that point, so they just left it sit there. So it isn't like it's gonna be a long-term monument to somebody's dreams over there. I think just we'll get rid of it, maybe use the stone for something else, put it on a pile somewhere and use it for a new sign somewhere, but it's gonna fall apart anyway, so. And it looks kinda dumb with one tree sitting there, I think.
And along with that, with the developments that we've seen with soil and water and FSA, contract possible, again, opening up for this spring, I think we want a clear lot.
Yeah.
I guess I could address it. We had discussed this and worked with the contractor on that, and the concept was that if there's a viable tree, to leave it, to show that we do have good faith that we'd like to keep trees that we could. This happens to be the only tree of that whole group that was worth saving. The rest of them were either ash trees that were already dying, or we had some maple trees that were splitting out. So the concept is, and maybe I overstepped my authority when David asked me about this on the building. I thought, Les, you and I, as project, we talked about it.
When we met in Steve's office that one day, I guess we kind of discussed a clean slate. All the trees would be gone.
We did, and then it came back around that if there was a good tree, we'd try to save it. But Commissioner Johnson wanted it back, I said, let's bring it up. I mean, now that it's clear, it does look kind of odd.
I think it looks better.
I hate to say it, but, and as far as the sign goes,
I wasn't aware that sign was damaged. I knew that they tried to move it, but I thought they just
tried to
dug
pick
down
it
and
up
saw
and
the
it was all
footings.
cracking, and they couldn't even pick the thing up in one piece, so.
And the concept there was, you know, and again, my interpretation was that it wasn't damaged, that it was still viable the way it was. So the concept is that if it happens to work out with the scheme of however that's built, fine. If not, it's a matter of a payloader and a dump truck and it's gone, so we're not gonna be out anything. Again, trying to show the public that we do care about what's going on there. And again, the tree, it takes obviously many, many, many years to grow a tree. That tree was viable, so why not leave it
Trees
there?
on this property too, and there's gonna be several old evergreens taken down, I would guess, this winter yet. If we're gonna have the public involved in every tree we take down on the courthouse, we're gonna have a lot of public meetings here. I'd say just get rid of the trees and get rid of the thing and clean it up, and we can move on in the future.
You can always add trees
We're
once
already
you know
paying-
if you're gonna put anything there.
Paying for that anyway.
Exactly, since we're paying
Adjust the
for it,
price,
we might as
so
well get a
get
clean
rid of it.
slate.
This way we'd have a clean slate to start with, because that tree is being in the way of anything you build.
How do you know that? We don't know what's gonna be built there. We don't know how it's gonna work in. It could very well be. I'm not saying that tree's gonna stay there forever. What I'm saying is, it's a good tree, let's leave it and see how it works out. Maybe we can keep it, maybe it's gotta come down. I guess that was my thought on it, but
I would say we should get rid of it and have a clean slate.
I'm just thinking, why pay to have it done later when you've already paid to have it done now? Just have it be a bare lot. And it's kinda late to get sentimental about whatever is remaining, 'cause
Once everything's gone, all the people will quit talking about it. So let's just get it over with.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we leave the sign and the tree as is until further we find out if it needs to be removed at a later date.
Dan's got a motion on the table. Is there a second? Is there a second for Dan's motion? I'll second it for the sake of discussion. Bring it on discussion. Any more discussion on the tree and the sign at the central school? Everybody need to say what they need to say on that? Okay, well, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Opposed?
I,
All right.
Motion fails. Thank you. Let's see, we're moving on that. Is there any update on the project? I see we have talk about seating on that.
What I've got on the seating is, unfortunately, our weather has turned not for the better. And I talked to Mr. Retman about it, and what's happening now is that the frost is at least 6 inches deep already, and every time they try to rake over it, it just comes up in clumps. And seeding now would be wasting money. It's not gonna work. So he's recommending to come back in the spring and seed it for us and make sure it's in decent shape and we get some growth out of it. He said you can do it now, but it's not gonna grow and you'll have nothing there. So I did tell him that if we're gonna do that, you are gonna be covered under the retainage of the contract, because the contract will still be in effect until we finalize this out, and it won't be finalized out until the seeding is done. So he is aware of that and said, well, that's a lot of money in the retainage. And I said, that's where it's gotta be if we're not gonna do it, but I don't see seeding now and then having to reseed in the spring, because he'll be done and we'll be doing it again anyway. So it doesn't make any sense to do it now, it really doesn't. So it's,
It actually gives us a better, let the lot settle over winter, go through the
Yeah.
fall.
The chunks will dissolve over the winter a little bit.
yeah, it'll sink in some.
This is a little different than that, but what about the sidewalks? Were they supposed to all come out too?
I'm not sure.
I don't recall that discussion, but I was questioning it a little bit. I don't know, I haven't even walked around them. Are they good?
Does the city own the sidewalks, or?
I don't know, but if they're bad, they should be taken out. But I don't know.
let me check on that.
I don't know if that was part of
On
the
sidewalks.
contract or not.
No, it wasn't, not the sidewalks,
Okay, that's fine.
No.
just the sidewalks.
The ones
to
on the
school.
west side are gone, because those were part of that west jutting out of the building that was there for the concession stand back in the day. Those are all gone.
Now, will the city take that property back?
Don't know.
It's a question I've had.
Yeah.
And Dan and I talked about the north end on the west side too, that you got your LA approach and there's another one there. Whether take that out now, because then it's gonna be a mess, or just deal with it next spring.
the big concern about that, because that was the approach apron then for the parking lot. So that goes right to the curb, or right to the edge, I should say, of the bituminous road. So if we take that out, there's no curb to protect that. So it just makes sense to leave that little apron for now.
But that big area of concrete north of the building, north of the
That's all
industrial,
gone.
that's all going to be
That's all
gone.
gone.
And they just will get rid of it. It's all old and busted up.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, Steve, you will take care of notifying Dave Redmond then about the tree and the sign?
We need a motion to take them out?
What we just did.
I thought that you made the motion to leave them.
Right.
And it
Does that
failed.
mean- And it failed, so that means they go out? Okay. Yep, I will take care of it.
That sign, we had wanted to use it at the fairgrounds.
Right.
And then that was what the thought was, and Dave Helbersman and somebody else came down with a couple forklifts because they thought they could dig under it and pick it up, but it was cracking and falling apart, so they just gave up on it.
Yeah, I thought they just dug down to the footings and stopped.
It would be
at that
nice to,
point.
that's what the plan was, to keep it and use it somewhere in the community, but
Yeah, moving it wasn't viable, but I thought that it was still in good shape.
footing, I don't think the footing under it was deep enough in the first place to support it, so they couldn't pick it up and move it, you know, but
The only way it could be moved is a piece at a time.
rock at a time.
Well, maybe there's somebody sentimental enough about it that wants it and take it on their own. I don't know.
They could contact Dave and work out those details.
Exactly.
Been sitting there for 100 years, they got plenty of time to do it.
Take care of that.
Actually, I've been told that sign isn't that
Oh, I
old.
think 90s was put up, maybe
80s.
80s, maybe late 80s.
I'm not sure. Steve, did you graduate from here? No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you did.
graduated there in '77, and I think it was there then.
Wasn't that far? Okay.
One of those things, it's there, but you don't notice it. I think it,
Maybe the plywood was replaced.
Well, when the Pipestone Jasper merger, they definitely updated it then.
but,
That would be in the early 90s.
yeah. Been there a long time.
All right, any other updates on the project over there, over west?
No, I don't.
Yeah. All right, is there any other business? Otherwise, we'll move on to committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, should we take a recess for a few minutes?
We can do that. All right, we'll take recess, 10 minutes, reconvene, 10, 20.
10 minutes or so?
Yep.
Is our tree people still
On the board, and he was from Jackson.
Okay, the time's 10:26, we'll reconvene. We'll continue on with our committee reports, or begin the committee reports. Luke, do you want to go ahead and kick them off?
Sure. On Wednesday, October 9th, we had an executive meeting at the hospital regarding an accounts receivable issue. On the 10th, the Soil and Water District met. We reviewed the 2020 budget and we met the new administrative assistant. On the 14th, our CRCA had an executive meeting. We approved hiring a legal firm to work forward the acquisition of land necessary for the combined disposal site for the dredging project. On the 18th, Highway 23 Coalition General Membership Meeting and Projects Committee meeting was in Granite Falls. Senator Paul Gazelka spoke, as well as Senator Andrew Lang and the MnDOT Commissioner. We reviewed projects list, and we're going to take additional comments before we meet again tomorrow. On the 22nd, the hospital board met, of course, you were all there. On the 23rd, to land use training that MCIT put on, there were several presentations on CUP's variances in recent court cases relating to land use issues. On the 29th, we, of course, we're all at the flood mitigation public meeting. On the 31st, the District 8 AMC meeting in Marshall. And on the 4th, the annual meeting for the Minnesota Transportation Alliance, Congressman Jim Hagedorn and several legislators spoke. There was a presentation on a proposed Great Lakes Hyperloop project. I guess it's basically like some kind of a magnetic train that doesn't actually touch rails, but is, kind of levitates magnetically or something. And I mean, it's a cool sounding project. until I asked, well, what is the cost per mile for this if you were to implement it? 50 million per mile.
How far they want to go?
Oh, they were talking about going from Cleveland to Chicago initially, and, I think in time, I just thought, well, good luck trying to get that money, but, and then, had a variety of different project updates on, some updates on autonomous vehicles and that kind of thing. And then on my way home, went to the Ruthven City Council meeting along with our sheriff, as they had some questions about their law enforcement contract that we went over with them. And then last Thursday, the 7th, Area 2 and RCRCA had their annual meeting. Representative Paul Torkelson was there. Bowser's Tom Giles presented on the drainage work group. And then Kerry gave updates on the projects completed for the year. That's what I did.
Thank you. Dan?
On the 10th, I attended the Pipestone Area Coalition anti-alcohol meeting. They're working on their messaging and so forth. Big concerns, of course, we've all been seeing in the news as well, too. I was expanded now more to vaping concerns as well, too, and not just the alcohol use. On the 11th, I had my Southwest 18 Mental Health Consortium. It was the annual meeting, so it was held in Redwood Falls. They had a speaker that came in and talked about the uptick in because of the farm economy, concerns about mental health and suicide, and some of the actions they're taking as far as call centers and getting people help that they need to combat that. On the 16th, we had our Southwest Health and Human Services meeting in Marshall. We ratified the contract, didn't we, Les, or was that the month before? I'm getting my months mixed up a little bit on the Health and Human Services.
Before.
It was the month before. So yeah, there wasn't anything really specific that stood out on back in October. Other than worked a little bit on the budgets more. Then on the 17th, we had our Casey Jones Trail Association meeting over in Slayton. This 5-mile extension that was been worked on this last year, the paving of that 3 miles has been completed. They didn't have the funds to do all 5 miles. So the remaining 2 miles then were graded, and that wasn't quite finished up yet, but I'm assuming now with before the weather set in, I think that last 2 miles is supposed to be pretty well ready.
Yeah, they were gonna seed like the day after our meeting,
Yep.
and then that was pretty much it, was the
Yep.
seeding, so.
There will be in the spring a ribbon cutting of some kind commemorating that. Continuing, of course, obviously discussion about seeking additional funding for that to keep that project going. On the 21st, then we had our SMOC meeting down in Worthington. We actually had it in the new classroom back in October. And with that being completed and us up to staffing, everything's working quite well with the SMOC program. On the 29th, we all had our special meeting here about the flooding in North Pipestone. On the 31st, the AMC District 8 region in Marshall.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing too, just to throw out there, this afternoon, did you all get that invitation then from the individual that came here about Meals on Wheels? She's having a presentation over at the Senior Citizen Center at noon. I'm not able to attend that. I've got another commitment, a meeting at noon, but I thought
plan
I'd just
on going.
remind everybody that.
Yep.
I think it's going to be pretty much a repeat of what she had done when she addressed us as well too. There's a need for more volunteer drivers, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Les?
Okay. On the 3rd, had Prime West, and we've had numerous updates since then. As that's a process changing daily.
Yep.
On the 7th, we had plant ops at the hospital, and that was reported at last month's hospital board meeting. 9th, I had Southwest Mental Health. If I counted right, as the report was given from, I can't think of his first name, Dave Vance,
From,
Southwest Mental Health.
what was his name? I think it was Dave.
Yeah. Anyhow, he was given an update on staff positions and shortages. If I counted them right, I think it was 11.
Yes.
shortages.
Dave Vincent, yeah.
Yeah. And then reported on contract hours for the year. Pipestone has 3,000-hour contract a year. At the end of the third quarter, we were at 3,241 hours already. Shows how the mental health is just exploding. And then monthly financials were approved. They were very consistent. They're usually running at 350 to 370, so. And then on,
Did Mr. Zant say anything about when Sioux Falls Mental Health will be back open again, like the Heart Hospital area? Any update
we
on
didn't
that?
have a report on that.
Okay.
We didn't have any representation at that meeting from Vera that night.
Well, I can,
They usually report on that.
Dan?
Worthington Unity House, anything more as far as what's going on there?
Just can't keep it
Yeah,
staffed.
it's a staffing deal.
They've come back to the Southwest 18 group because they've given them a loan, and they're asking for some $50,000 forgiveness, a loan down there, and that was tabled, saying we need more information about this.
They're just a bleeding wound right now because they can't staff it. They can't run it 24 hours right now. That's the problem. There's just not enough.
Staff controls the amount of rooms they can utilize.
Right.
And there's just not a lot of people. It seems like Southwestern Mental Health is kind of like a stepping stone for these people to go in there, get their credentialing, and then they move on.
When that was built a number of years ago, apparently they got a $250,000 loan from the Southwest 18 consortium.
Yeah.
And already a number of years ago, they asked and were given one $50,000 forgiveness. And now they're coming back asking for another one. It's really scary.
Yeah, they're hitting some hard financial times. The reimbursement too from health insurance is really hitting them hard.
Yeah.
And
Just like the hospital, you know.
And that's something we got to consider is these non-prime health counties. I mean, they're not ponying up like the rest of us are when it comes back to reimbursements. It's something that's going to have to get looked into.
I think that's gonna be an issue when these surrounding counties are able to be with Prime West. We'll have in that organization or joint powers group, 4 counties in Prime West and 1 not. What's gonna be fair? Are we gonna carry the load of that county, or are they gonna have to pony up?
And you're better off not growing bigger and bigger. Just run the business you've got and do a good job with that and let the others worry about their own stuff, because you get too much in there, you might have some real drag on your financials.
But it seems like there's more and more services needed by mental health.
Kyle?
lack of funding. Hi,
They've expanded into the mobile.
pretty close. You got a meeting?
I got one thing, if you guys want to throw it on the agenda. It's not too late. I emailed you, but it's not a big thing. I can bring it in
Oh, I'm sorry. When'd you send it?
this morning.
Oh.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So, and then,
Add to it. You want to put it on?
Do we have to take action, or is it just
It's a
Informational.
resolution of support for the Des Moines River watershed grant application.
That's pretty
We've
non-controversial.
talked
Right.
about the Des Moines River in the past. It's just a resolution that
Okay.
would support the application for a grant from Bowser.
Well, do we need to take action then to add this? To be formal about it?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to, when Les finishes his report, we'll have Kyle present his information.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second to add Kyle to the agenda here
I've
quick.
got some discussion, though. I'm a little concerned about open meeting. Because we are still in session and still being recorded.
Yeah.
So we don't want the media to think that we tried to slip something in on them by adding something on the agenda so late. So as long as everything's copacetic, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, we'll just send the copy of the resolution to the media. that we did
Okay.
it.
To make sure that,
Yeah.
that everybody
We're not going
knows
to hide
that.
anything from them.
No.
We're not hiding anything.
okay.
Is there any further discussion?
First and last.
So we take action on this? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's finish, then we'll talk with Kyle.
Okay. On the 10th, then, we had Soil and Water meeting, and we welcomed Melissa Rosendahl as replacement for Stephanie LeBrun. Their 2020 insurance rates were a plus 7%. And Luke and I kind of looked them sheets over a little. Approved a capacity buffer grant agreement, had a buffer update. Then on the 16th, they had Health and Human Services approved the labor agreement. They took the two unions and put them into one union, which is going to save a lot of time in negotiations. And then we approved one public health nurse and approved taking back the unclaimed checks, which was a total for the year of $365.14. And then updated 3 policies. And then on the 29th, the flooding meeting, and then on the 31st, AMC. And that's the end of my report. So Kyle's up.
Yep, come on up, Kyle. Yep.
Sorry again for the last minute. But, and like I said, it's not urgent that we do it immediately, but I thought I'll get it done. I just got the email this morning, actually, from the watershed group from the Board of Water and Soil Resources. But we've discussed in the past, the Des Moines is looking at doing a one watershed, one plan, similar to the Missouri and the Yellow Medicine, which is already completed. And they're looking for letters of support when they apply to the Board of Water and Soil Resources for the grant dollars that are available. So I was just bringing before you today a resolution that would support the application of grant funding for the Des Moines River watershed to do a one watershed, one plan with the Board of Water and Soil Resources. I got a resolution here. It's kind of in draft form yet, but I didn't think it would be a controversial issue. And that we've talked that we're going to be supportive of the watershed planning process, although we weren't probably going to be a member of the actual board if there is one that's formed in the future. We'd be more of a silent partner throughout the entire process.
So we won't have to go to meetings and pay per diems and all that stuff.
Right, we would still attend them as needed, and we would be part of the group, but we probably wouldn't be at the table at every meeting.
Dan?
And then by us supporting this resolution, there's no financial obligation on the county's part by doing this. It's just a support.
Correct. Basically, it says, be it therefore, now therefore be it resolved that the Pipestone County recognizes the support of the watershed scale planning efforts consistent with Minnesota Statutes Chapter 103B 801, also known as a One Watershed, One Plan, and be it further resolved that Pipestone County welcomes the opportunity to collaborate with the county's soil and water districts, watershed districts within the Des Moines River watershed for watershed scale planning efforts in the future, and be it further resolved that Pipestone County supports an application to the Board of Water and Soil Resources for a planning grant to develop a comprehensive watershed management plan within the Des Moines River watershed to collaborate this effort pending selection as a recipient of the planning grant. So that is the whereas, therefore be it resolved, so.
Makes perfect sense.
Mr. Chair, so Kyle, would you be representing the county at meetings, that type of, instead of board
Yes, I would
representation?
also, but I would welcome, I would assume Luke would also be available and as needed at meetings as kind of the rep from that area. So
His district has the,
they just had their first planning process meeting about a week or so ago. I was not able to attend, but that's where they kind of got together as a group and decided that they're planning to pursue the grant, so.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion from Mr. Krieger.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Anything else for Kyle while we have you?
Copy that.
just had a quick question, Kyle. We had Nick here earlier talking about this issue up on the county line about the drainage issue.
Oh, sure.
Coming
Yep.
through the farmer's field with he needed buffers. Has there been any effort to contact him at all to?
Oddly
Nick
enough-
has got some surveying done that he thought would be helpful. Maybe in the spring they can change some things up there, but it sounds like there's a problem downstream from that.
Yeah, I stopped through Lake Benton Friday night, and by accident I ran into the owner.
Just happened to be in the same
I
place.
just happened to be at the same place, same time, and had about a half-hour discussion with him, wondering what his plans were. And he basically said that he had the waterway cleaned out, and it was his intent to seed it, which he did. He got a bunch of rain following the seeding, has done several seedings since, has not been able to reestablish the waterway like he would like to. that he had every intention of getting it established and stabilized, but now we've gotten so much rain and it's washed out. He's not happy about it either. So I told Lance Wheeler, our technician in the soil and water, he was gonna swing up there today and look at it, to see what his thoughts were on it. I told the owner that we would be available or willing to provide technical assistance as needed to make the improvements needed. And I also did indicate that there is the potential for us to require the buffer based on the other waters requirement. But it's our objective to address the runoff and the erosion as the primary factor. So he's willing to work with us and do whatever might be needed or what he's capable of doing.
Then it sounds like at least
He's open.
hopefully there'll be some improvements and some of the neighbors around there will be
Right, but
appreciative of what you've done, so.
yeah, with the amount of water that's coming through there and the continual flow, I don't know if it's even realistic to consider it being put back to a waterway. I mean, it's almost like a ditch. And he indicated too that with the amount of water that's continually there along with these heavy rains, it's just washing out more and more, so.
Well, at least you're
So we're gonna continue to work on it.
some night in the same place.
So is this the landowner that has the land south of the water that's going to the east across the road?
Yes.
That we talked about at the meeting where you showed that?
This was the one that Domain said was not really relevant in the discussion.
Right,
Right,
Yes. Yep.
because it was downstream from where they
Correct.
had done the road
Yep.
project and all.
right.
But it's positive that he's willing to do something if it's possible.
Right. Yep. But I haven't heard anything else on the drainage issue. I mean, I haven't really been asked to do anything with that to my knowledge.
Kyle, in your visit with him, did you address the buffer zone at all?
Just basically saying that, I mean, it's not required under the DNR, protected waters, but we would have the potential to require it as in other waters potentially.
How did he receive that information?
His main concern was he's got tile running parallel with the waterway and that if it's put into grass, it's gonna plug the tile. So, and that's been the issue with a lot of producers that have taken the efforts to put tile in along a water course, and that by seeding it down to a permanent vegetation, you end up plugging your tiles and creating, replacement costs and repairs in the future. So it's an issue. How quickly it'll plug them, nobody really knows, but it's always the potential that they'll gradually plug.
The roots,
Yes,
but it's also the roots that stabilize the bank.
yes, yep, that's correct. Right.
Well, at least you're working on it. I was just
Yep.
curious if there was anything happening, and obviously apparently there is, so that's
We'll
good.
continue to work on it. I'll keep you posted and go from there.
Okay, because some of the neighbors had concerns about the whole area, and it'd be kind of nice at least we're
Right.
trying to help them out a little bit, so that's good.
Okay. Anything else for Kyle?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, Bruce, if you want to continue on.
On the 8th, we had plan ops. Les and I were there. That's pretty much
Okay, that's fine.
reported on that. There's, you're all aware of that. There's hospice improvements coming down the road, and things like that we're
59,
looking at.
40.
21st, we had a
dash
a zoning meeting, and that was concerning the power line. We've since
Thanks, see you later.
approved that, and that's all. I think that's going forward now at this point, as far as we know. 28th, we had a PCMC executive meeting. Chris and I met with Brad, and we talked about insurance, which is a big ongoing issue, and we're hoping to get some good news on that in the near future. It doesn't sound very encouraging, but we're hoping for some. And we talked a little bit about the Murray County issue, that we were going to go to a meeting, and Les and I ended up going to that meeting later the next day or whatever it was, but along with Brad to Murray County.
How did that go over?
It was I'm kind of, it was okay we went. I think we
Yeah.
got some information. We heard a lot of their concerns, and we really couldn't give them a lot of You know, we can't throw them a lifeline there. I think they're having some issues, some serious issues there. Leadership and financial issues and things like that, but they have a interim administrator now who I think is an attorney.
No, he's
He's a Sanford employee.
right, Sanford employee.
Anyway, they're struggling with a 35 to 40% loss in business because of the providers they lost back a few years ago. And anyway, they're having some issues with stuff, and they're still considering switching to Avera, but I don't think they're any closer to a decision.
Well, I think one of the main things they were interested in was our relationship with Avera, how we work with them as a managed facility.
And one of them expressed at the beginning of the meeting that it would sure be helpful if they got back their two gals that are now in a clinic in a Folda, and they got back our PA that's in Edgerton in the clinic, if they went to Avera. And that
That didn't go far.
but the gals from Folda would work with them, but we didn't, but Dan Walt didn't want to go back at all. He eventually said that. He said, I am happy where I am, I'm not going to go back. So anyway, that stopped that, but that was one of our big concerns about that, but. Anyway, then we had the ditch meeting on the 29th. Everybody knows about the flooding we had there, and I think what we've done is all we can do at this point with that. Seems like we're waiting for cold weather to come so something can be happening there. The city's going to work first on that, right?
Yep, I think we're there.
Understood it, but then the 31st, we had the AMC meeting in Marshall, and that's all I had, so.
I think Monday the 7th, I had Lincoln Pipestone Safe Roads Coalition in Ivanhoe. Lauren Melton came and presented on what we met on there. So on the 9th, PCMC Executive Committee meeting, Commissioner Johnson covered that. On the 10th, Personnel Committee, we talked about what we met on earlier today, possible adoption of row officer. Tuesday the 15th, Law Library meeting. Scott Barduson was nominated chair since the position was up. Took action to continue one more year with Thompson Writers. Nobody's looked into the contract, and we're set on a 7% increase annually. And we could have gotten on this years ago, but it's been kind of overlooked. So we're only going to we'll only re-sign with them if we can renegotiate a 2% or under increase. So, and if not, and really how things are starting to go to, we should really consider starting moving towards digital with the law library. They'll end up saving some costs. But a lot of people still like the paper books to read through. So that's kind of, we're in that transition period. That's something we should probably look at moving down the road, because it would save costs. So, the 17th, Friends of the Casey Jones Trail, Dan covered that earlier. Friday the 18th, went to the Highway 23 Coalition Annual Meeting up in Prairie's Edge. Commissioner Johnson was there too. Tuesday 22nd, PCMC Board Meeting. And then Monday and the 28th, CPT in Morris. Got quite a bit of information there. They hired a business manager. Her name's Gina Marlowe. And she was also nominated to be the board clerk, take notes and do the meeting minutes and whatnot. They did lose a senior developer who's resigned to move into a similar job, but as the meeting progressed, finding out what it is a lot of these people are unsure what they're going to be compensated and paid. Moving to a public entity, there's no, the pay scale's all over the place, and so that was one of the things that we went into a contract with David Drown's Associates, or whatever it was. David Drown came up, and then we're going to have them come up with a pay scale and package.
They're going to do a whole compensation study for everybody and where they're at, and review the job descriptions and the whole thing?
Correct. And part of the discussion too is, since this is such a specialty field, that maybe the wages should be more at a higher mark than a lower mark. And I think that's why we're losing senior developers. They're just feeling they can go to a better market and make more money. But I think the CPT as a board would like to make people want to come to Morris, to have that job, to, and build with it. So, but that's meetings down the road when we come back to that, because one of the other issues was the county contributions for the services are all over the board. Some counties are paying as little as $316 a month, some as $1250 per month for the same services. Back when it was private business, Chad or whatever, he could pretty much, barter with them on the contracts, this and that, but now that's a public entity, we need to get everything uniform. So that's something that might come down. We might end up paying more for a service coming down the road. May not. We might be seeing might be a county paying them less. I don't know. I didn't see our numbers there.
As normal, some will be happy and some will be upset.
Exactly.
Our rates are going up.
The high ones will be happy and the low ones will be sad.
So talk about for the purchasing counties having either a discount or some type of incentive with being the initial ones, because, and on that note, we just took action to pay back every county for their contribution to buy in to CPT effective January. So all the money we invested into that we'll begin back in January. And that leaves them with still almost $750,000 in the bank, everything budgeted still, and they're very financially stable. They have everything's on monthly contracts and multi-year contracts, so they're sitting very well financially. There was another company, I forget, a metro-based company that does same similar services, and they're going to be either closing or folding. So there's going to be 25 more counties looking for these services, just in Minnesota alone. Two of them expressed interest and wanted to buy into the JPA. We'll talk about that down the road. Everyone's pretty skeptical on that. We kind of want to let the dust settle. But just contracts for now. We'll talk about JPAs later. So. And then after that, I came back for a PCMC executive committee meeting. Bruce had already covered. And then the 31st AMC District 8. That was my committee reports for November. Do you have some, Dan?
Before we adjourn, Mr. Chair, if you would, and pardon me for being so out of sync on this, back to our discussion then about transitioning then from elected to appointed. I had a question that says recorder, treasurer, and auditor. Coroner, is the coroner a position that we should be looking at as well too? Are there provisions for that, or is that a complete separate issue, Steve?
Complete separate issue, but coroners can be appointed as well. And actually, it brings up another point. I've been having discussions with our current county coroner, Dr. Christensen, and he is still willing to be the coroner, but he would like to have all the other docs be assistant coroners.
Deputies or whatever.
Deputy coroner type of thing. He wants to call them assistant instead of deputizing them.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue is they would like to get reimbursement for going out, because right now they get nothing. And so I'm working with him. I've checked with other counties around us to see what they're doing. Most of them are, a couple of them are appointed, a couple are still elected. Rock's elected, Nobles is appointed. They actually use a coroner out of St. Paul. And then they have deputized coroners in the area that go down to, but we're one of the few that really are elected anymore, and a whole lot of them left. But yes, that can be appointed as well if we can get someone to do that. But that's a little different process than this. But
What would we have to do to initiate that process? Go through something similar to the auditor treasurer, or is there?
no, I'll check the details of that, but it's more to the position of the old type of appointment with the legislature. It's not that difficult.
I think it hurts to start
It would make sense. If we're to clean this other up, it'd make sense
a
to.
little bit and check it out and see what's going on. Larry's probably getting, Christensen's probably getting
Well, he's-
closer
he's-
to retirement
right.
age anyway too. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to see what the future holds there and look into a different approach to
Right.
it.
Again, he's good through 2022, but the biggest thing I'm going to bring back to the board before we finish up the budget and get some money in there to reimburse these people to go. $250 a call out is pretty reasonable for what I'm hearing around our area in the District 8 we're in. And approximately 3 times a month they're going out, somebody's getting called to some sort of an investigation. No, they're coroners, they're not medical examiners, so there's a difference between the two.
Sure.
So if there's any type of autopsy that needs to be done, the remains would be sent out anymore to St. Paul. Back in a few years ago, they used to be able to use Minnehaha County, but everything's got to stay in the state. So they would be sent to St. Paul. And if there's anything that's questionable regarding criminal activity, the BCA is immediately brought in. And so you've got the sheriff, BCA, and the coroner working together on any type of, potential homicide, that type of thing, or, an unattended death that seems suspicious, that type of thing.
So the coroner and the sheriff would determine if there's a need to look further.
Oh,
into
absolutely. Oh, yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. They would be the first
Right.
ones that would
It's-
say, well, this is kind of fishy, we better look at that or
Right.
something.
The first rule of a deceased person is it's always a crime scene until it's not. That's, in the training I've gotten over the years, that's what the sheriffs and the coroners all tell us. It's always a crime scene until someone says it's not and it's natural causes. So that always leads it down that road first if necessary. So.
Are there any other areas in our elections that we should maybe be looking at to clean up, or is this the only little old items?
Really, the only ones we do, the sheriff is,
Right, yeah.
right, that's all post, and, you know, that's never gonna change that way. But the other one down the road would possibly be the recorder's office.
Yeah,
The only one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's, the row officers are auditor, treasurer, recorder. Coroner can be appointed, we can work on that. But again, Dr. Christensen is fine proceeding with where we're at.
I don't know.
but there's not like weed commissioner, that's appointed, isn't it, or whatever, that's
No,
not.
county attorney won't be changing, you still gotta have those elected,
Right.
so. But row officer appointments have been going on, if you looked at this document, for years and years and years, bringing them together, that type of thing.
Order isn't as critical as the auditor treasurer, I don't think, for numbers and accounts and all that kind of stuff, but still, it's
Pretty critical.
it's an important job. I mean, and accuracy is very, very essential. And I think she does a great job with it, too.
Yeah, Mary Ann does an excellent job, without a doubt. So I'll get more information, bring it back on the coroner issue. We can deal with that.
Something to look at, anyway.
Okay. As far as upcoming meetings, we have the AMC Annual Conference, December 9th through 11th, St. Cloud. And for December 2nd, Truth and Taxation, here at 7 p.m. The 3rd, we're going to be holding a special meeting. No meeting on December 10th due to the AMC conference I mentioned earlier. December 17th, holding a special meeting at 9 a.m. Due to no meeting on December 24th because of Christmas Eve holiday. So,
So, Mr. Chairman, we'll be setting the budget and levy on the 17th at that meeting.
okay.
Have that done by the end of the month, so.
So then the December 3rd meeting then, is that going to be replacing the December 10th meeting, or this is a
Correct.
special? It is, so it'll be
This-
so that'll be a regular meeting, it's
But
just on a different
it's-
date?
Yeah, it's a special meeting because it's not on our official date, so.
But that's not going to be a per diem meeting for us, because that's a regular meeting just on a different day, or is
Well,
it?
technically, it would be because you changed the date. A special meeting is a per diem meeting, actually. That's the way,
Clarification on that.
you may choose if you want per diem on that, that's entirely up to you. But it's a special meeting because we're changing the date to a different date and time, which does affect possibly your schedule with the hospital too, with their meetings, things like that. But we do have to continue our business to make sure we get the bills paid and all that, so we do have to get those meetings in. So since our normal meeting would be on the 10th, there might be a few more auditors warrants coming through to make sure we're getting the bills paid on time. I conferred with Peggy out at the hospital, and they'll work it through. We might have 2 batches of hospital warrants in December instead of having one large one, or we may actually have one. Well, we'll have another one on 27th, but she might have some for us on the 3rd too. So we're just
So
gonna be,
then-
we're
so
just gonna be
it's-
flexible with making sure everybody gets the bills paid and all that.
So the 17th meeting will be a special meeting then, too?
Yes. Yep.
But we also have the
Techni-
hospital
technically,
meeting that
yeah,
day also.
Right.
Yeah.
But-
Right.
So I guess just so we're all on the same page, then when it comes to that 3rd, are we going to treat it like one or not, or it's just part of our duties? I'm
Well, the only difference is it's on a different date, which makes it a special meeting instead of the 3rd.
So it's a technicality, but in
It's-
practicality, how do we want to approach it?
As far as per diem goes,
Well, we wouldn't have been getting paid for it if we didn't change our schedule.
If they
So,
all take a per diem on it, it's gonna cost us $1,000.
Yeah.
I just shouldn't call it a regular
it
meeting.
would have been a regular meeting.
Regular meeting on a different day.
Had we not changed things.
Yeah, I'll treat it like a regular meeting then myself as well, too, so.
again, I had to list it as special because it is not on the normal
Right,
meeting
it's a
date,
different date,
so. And I'll also post that in the papers too, so people know what our schedule is for December.
It's not an
It's already
additional-
posted out on the bulletin board too. I did it months ago when we set this up, so.
Not an additional meeting, it's just.
Right.
a different day.
No,
Yep, I agree.
change in date for the most part.
That's what makes it special.
True.
Anything else, Steve? Or, okay. Is
I
there-
have nothing else.
Move to approve. I mean,
Adjourn?
Mr.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I will second that.
Rain short there.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we stand adjourned. Thank you.